Hello my little Liners, you can call me Lovegood, and welcome to the Podfic's Baton Pass for Shutterbug by Iriley. The way this works is that I'm reading chapter 44, Evie is Evil read the previous chapter, and Mouse Satan will be reading the next chapter, passing along who will be reading Shutterbug until the Podfic is finished. The full playlist and link to this fic are both on my latest post, so please go and check that out. Now, onto the chapter. They spent that morning getting ready. Shower, shave, in Jason's case, just a bit of a stubble, and they did their hair as best they could. Soon enough they were in their suits, and were making their way to the car. Peter had bought an old but nice car, had it painted and fixed throughout the week. Max, Peter's head of security, had taken the role of driver. It wasn't a long ride, Max knowing the shortcuts with less busy streets. Max opens the door once he parked, letting Peter and Jason step out, before letting Peter know to call when he's ready. They make their way to the front and show the attendants the printed invitation. He looked at the paper before checking the list. "I'm sorry, but I don't see your name on here. When did you get the invite?" Peter smiles and answers, "A week ago. I guess they forgot to send it a month ago with everyone else's." Peter may be smiling, but the man at the door can tell he's not too happy about the insult. A man in a nicer suit walks up and gives a tight smile at Peter. "Ah, Mr. Parker, I'm glad you could make it on such short notice. Please, come in." The man at the door lets his shoulders relax as they walk in. The man had dropped his smile the second his head was turned, and Peter could still see it. "Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Blackwood." The man forces a smile again. "You're most welcome, Mr. Parker. You are the newest CEO, after all. And quite the business you've made. Not everyone can contend with Mr. Wayne." He glances towards Jason and Peter ignores it. "I appreciate the kind words. You specialize in military support, right? You must have made leaps and bounds in the field with all the alien resources given to strengthen our defenses." The man looked a bit shocked Peter had known about. He gives a dry laugh, trying to hide his dark look. "That's more my brother's area. I just work on the social matters." Peter nods. He already knew that, but since this man was the one who waited last minute to invite him solely to embarrass him when he thought he'd be unprepared, he figured he could return the favour a bit. The older man excused himself once they reached the ballroom, because apparently rich people need one of those. Peter sighs and looks around, spotting a few familiar faces. Bruce was near one of the drink tables, a drink in hand, but was talking to a man and a woman when Clark had joined them. Tim was near a wall, leaning on it while talking to Connor. "What's Tim doing here?" Jason follows his eyes and spots his younger brother. "Oh, Tim is technically the CEO of Drake Industries, even though it was pretty much absorbed into Wayne Industries." Peter nods and turns to the food table. "Want to grab something to eat before we get dragged into fake small talk?" Jason smiles at him and nods. They make their way over and start to fill a plate when he bumps into someone. "Oh, sorry about that." He turns and sees none other than Kat. "What are you doing here?" She looks up, shocked as well, before answering. "I'm here with my aunt. Plus, I'm getting some pictures for GN." Peter nods along and realizes he's never introduced Jason and Kat. "Oh, Kat, this is Jason, my boyfriend." She looks him up and down before nodding. "Nice to meet you." "My name's Katrina, but you can call me Kat." Jason shakes her hand when it's offered and doesn't say anything when she squeezes it. They continue to talk a bit about work and the like when a tall woman with short black hair walks over. "Kat, oh there you are. I was wondering where you slipped off to." The woman looks towards Peter before her eyes snap to Jason. "Didn't expect to see you here, Jason." He can feel Jason step a bit closer to him. "Selena, how have you been?" They share pleasantries for a minute longer before the woman, Selena, excused her and Kat. Jason lets out a long sigh, shoulders thumping as she disappears into the crowd. "You okay?" He looks up at Peter and smiles. "Yeah, an old friend of Bruce's. They were together for a bit, I think." Peter nods and doesn't press. They start to eat, grabbing a drink when they finish, a flute of champagne each, when they start to make the rounds talking to people, making connections where they can. They'd stopped to talk to Bruce and Clark. Peter has noticed the rings they now wear on their hand. He smiles, but doesn't get the chance to ask or congratulate when Bruce starts talking about getting a tour of his labs. "Only if I get to tour yours." The man chuckles and agrees. "It's a deal then." He pats him on the shoulder when they get pulled away. A large group of people who seem to be there for the drinks rather than to network. Did your dad just take 3 shots back to back? Jason sighs at Peter's words. Introducing Brucey Wayne, his public appearance. He leans in a bit closer. And a good mask to hide behind so he didn't get suspected to be Batman. Jason glances down and sees a small blush on Peter's face. Realizing how close he is, he pulls back. Let's find someone to talk to. Don't want all your studying to go to waste. Peter nods and looks around. That's Jacob Tristan. He's the CEO of Tristan Energy. They've been trying to create a new way to produce clean energy. Jason nods and follows after him as Peter walks over. Peter greets himself and introduces Jason as well before the other man does the same, introducing his wife Caroline. They start to talk about the older man's work. Most of it is lost on Jason. Caroline as well, if her silence is anything to go off of. When Jason sees a dangerously familiar face. Not wanting to bother Peter, he excused himself to the bathroom before calmly walking to the hallway he saw the man in. Why the hell are you here? The man smiles. Is that any way to greet an old teacher? Jason scowls. The older man sighs and walks a bit further into the dark hallway, bidding Jason to follow. He does. Once a bit further in, it's dark, enough that Jason hasn't seen the man in front of him stop until he bumps into him, something the other wanted to happen, no doubt. He was proven right when he flipped around, facing the wall and a hand covering his mouth. It's hard to tell because of how dark it is, but Jason's sure something pressed into his neck. He tries to get the man off him, but isn't strong enough in this position. The other hand now pushing his arm onto his back. Now, I just wanted to talk. Jason rolls his eyes, not that he can see so. Seems like that's not going to happen, though. Too bad. Oh, and let's not tell our little spider about this. No need to worry him when he's at such an important event. Jason freezes at the mention of Peter. I'm sure you wouldn't want him finding out about the things Red Hood's done in the past either. Jason can't help but think of the duffel bag. The guns, the iceberg lounge, black mask. No, Peter would hate him for any of that. Are you sure? He doesn't know if the voice was in his head or not. He's pushed into the wall for a moment and the next he's alone in the hallway. He carefully takes out his phone to text Dick, to tell him about what happened, when he sees a text from a number named Sensei. Sensei, if you ever want to talk. Not opening it, just looking at the message through the notification, he moves to Big Bird in his contacts. Littlewing. He's back. Red. Big Bird. Typing. With Peter. Talking to Mr. Tristan was interesting, and more people would join their conversation, offering their own views about how clean energy would benefit people and how they could do it. At one point, the conversation turned to talk about Peter's business, and he got to talk about his amazing workers and how they've started to make some breakthroughs. He didn't tell them everything, of course. He wouldn't be sharing his secrets that easily. A few of the wives that joined their husbands had cooed at him, and some of the husbands who come with their wives ruffled his hair. He laughed along, but was slightly annoyed that they saw him as a kid. Jason comes back soon with a bit of a dark look on his face, but he tries to hide it. Peter excuses himself and moves to meet Jason halfway. Are you okay? Jason almost flinches. Peter frowns and takes his hand. Blinking, Jason looks up to meet Peter's eyes. Peter gives him a once-over and can't see anything out of the ordinary, so he just guides him to a table where he has him sit before moving to grab them drinks. He looks down when he's pulled back. Jason didn't let go of his hand. Instead, he pulls him closer, wrapping his arms around Peter's waist. Peter turns around to face him easily, since he was still standing, and puts a hand on his head. They stay like that for a few minutes, Peter running his fingers through Jason's hair while the man thinks. Jason moves his head to look up at him, and Peter smiles. Finding an answer in Peter's eyes, he stands. I think we've been here for long enough. Want to head out? Peter asks, and Jason gives a hesitant nod. While walking towards the front, they get stopped by 2 familiar faces. Ah, Mr. Parker. So glad you could make it. Peter smiles and greets them back. Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood, thank you for the invitation. I'm afraid we're actually on our way out. I'm not feeling all that great and didn't want to pass it to anyone. They give an understanding smile and nod. I'm sorry to hear that. Before you go, let us apologize for our son's behavior. Surprised, Peter shakes his head. I did still punch him. They wave him off. Even still, his words and actions are disgraceful and quite frankly embarrassing, Mrs. Blackwood says, shaking her head. Mr. Blackwood clears his throat and continues. Once again, we are very sorry about our son, but we shall let you go and rest. Peter smiles and nods, continuing to walk towards the fire when Peter's eye catches the brooch Mrs. Blackwood was wearing. A lotus flower pinned to her chest. He doesn't say anything, noting it for later when they're stopped again by Mr. Blackwood's brother. Leaving so soon? Peter can hear the mocking tone in his voice. Yes, I'm not feeling all too well and didn't want to pass it off to anyone. Peter glances to the side as he notices how quiet it got. Everyone was watching. You don't seem sick to me. He mumbles it, but loud enough to be heard. Kids these days have no manners. Have you even talked to anyone, or did you just come for the free food? He laughs, and a few people awkwardly laugh along. Smiling, Peter looks the man in the eye. Not at all. I've spoken to quite a few people here about various topics from the research and tests my company is conducting to how reliable clean energy will benefit people in different ways. Even had a lovely conversation about how different chemicals can affect people and better alternatives to them in medicine and cosmetics. I would have loved to discuss weapon safety and how they could be improved, saving non-renewable resources with you, but I recalled you don't know but then I recalled you don't know about such topics. Your younger brother and CEO of the company your father left you being the one I'd talk to. Unfortunately, I was feeling a bit sick and figured I'd discuss it at a later time. The man's face turned red, not liking having been called out. Peter continued. If I'm not mistaken, the reason your brother had to take over as CEO was due to your lack of tact, spending your money on wine and women, leaving the cleanup to your brother and PR team before ultimately losing your claim to the company. No one speaks, but the sound of a clap rings out. The youngest brother of the Blackwood family started to clap, sparking the rest to do so as well. Peter turns to leave as the older man starts to direct attention to him. Looking at Jason as they walk out, he can see his eyes are wide. Let's go home. The next day. Walking into his office, Peter sees an envelope on his desk. How did this... Opening it, he finds a letter and a picture. The picture is of him and Jason on the docks. Someone else was following him on his date. Quickly unfolding the letter, he reads, Dear Mr. Parker, meet me on the corner of 7th and 9th in 2 days at midnight. Don't tell anyone and come alone. Sincerely, Master. Peter crumples the letter in his hand, looking at the photo. They weren't just threatening him. They were threatening Jason. Alrighty, my little lunars, that's the end of this one. Again, the full playlist and link to this fic are both on my latest post, so please go and check that out. Bye, little lunars.